Hey everyone, Mike and Jasmine here, co-founders of RevForce, and hope you all are having a fantastic Sunday. And today kicks off our Sunday at 6 Ask the Hive series. So every Sunday moving forward at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Jazz and I are going to go live and we are going to talk about all things technology when it comes to just overall tech, AI, automations, what's happening in the workforce when it comes to how these technologies are being utilized and leveraged, but more importantly, connecting builders, business owners, service providers, and also aspiring service providers who want to get into this field, how to develop the vocabulary, the context, and more importantly, the communication skills to be effective in today's marketplace. So whether you are here for the first time or getting involved into tech for the first time, or you're an experienced technologist with 20 or 30 years of experience, you all know the value of clear communication. So whether you are talking to another person, leading a team of developers, or having to have conversations with small business owners, knowing how to clearly communicate how the technology is going to produce results for the end user or for the end customers is going to be a valuable skill. So we're super excited to get these things, this series kicked off.
Exactly. And I think the most important part is that at the end of the day, what we found has been the biggest struggle for us in this field is the difference between speaking language. You have people that are highly technical and they understand the technology, but don't always understand the business operation and how the business works end to end. And on the other end of the spectrum, you have all the people who understand business and business strategy, but don't understand how the technology works in a way that makes for a meaningful conversation. So we're kind of coming in and trying to help with like the translation layer between what it's going to take to understand the tech and also the ops side of this business. So we want to kick off the series today with talking about digital infrastructure foundations. So
yeah, and I think the best way to maybe pull people into the conversation of digital infrastructure is start with something that we already know, right? Let's build a context of relevancy before we kind of dive into something that might be a little bit foreign. And digital infrastructure is no different than physical infrastructure. You know, if you think about construction or construction management, or whether you have construction background or you know of it, most of us know how it kind of works. Whether it's a house, a building, commercial or residential, oftentimes you start with a blueprint, right? An architect or a team of architects put a floor plan together, and that blueprint eventually dictates the entire construction process end to end to eventually a finished product, whether it's a big, tall skyscraper in a downtown metropolitan area, or it's a house in a suburb of anywhere in the world.
And with that being said, when we start talking about, physical infrastructure, it's all very interconnected, right? Like there are different areas or cross cuts of infrastructure. You have the foundation, and then you have the framing, and then you have the electrical, and then you have the plumbing, and then you have the wall. Like every part of the physical infrastructure has to be planned because they all build upon one another. And so the same thing happens in the digital infrastructure. It's just a lot of it is invisible and people don't see it. So we're hoping to help people start connecting the dots of how all of these different pieces are all tied together and what each one of these are going to do to help you understand, well, how do I make better decisions? Because once you understand the big picture and you see all the dots, you can finally start to be able to put the context together and make decisions around it. So let's go ahead and jump into the actual digital infrastructure here, right? So in order for us to be able to break this down, I think in the most logical way, because those people that are highly technical probably understand a lot of this. They don't really need someone to explain it. But what I think this will be helpful for are the people who are highly technical, who have to talk to non-technical people in order to get the results that they want. And for those of you that aren't very good with technology, or you don't understand a lot about how the internet works and how digital business works, hopefully this can start to bring a little bit of context in some layman terms that'll help you start to see how this all fits together. So in order to do that, we're going to kind of walk through an example of you owning your business is like having a file cabinet inside of a building, inside of a very large city. And I think if we can break it down from piece to piece to piece, by the time we get to the very bottom, you're going to understand how all of the pieces of the foundation work together in order for you to be on the internet today and do business on the internet. So with that, the big question I feel like we have to bridge is that your domain, your hosting, your DNS records, your email, they all are actually connected, and that the domain is the thing that ties the entire system together. So to answer, I want us to kind of look at this like, imagine that we are in a mega city and we have office buildings, we have record offices, we have mail rooms, we have file cabinets, and your digital infrastructure is like owning just that one single file cabinet inside of that city.
And it kind of feels like that right now too. I mean, how many millions, if not billions of websites are there, and then the subdomains and the interconnectedness of all that, right? So it is a giant city with all these businesses, website applications, portals, systems, emails. It's massive, and it's massive to operate. So every business needs a way to find a way for people to find it and its digital property, right? So instead of asking someone to remember some complicated, convoluted technical server with a bunch of different numbers, we give that property a very simple or friendly name to remember it by.
So something like your local business, right? But it's not enough for us just to have your local business, because many of you who've bought a domain realize that you have to choose this little code at the end. And should I go with .com? Do I go with .net? Do I go with .org? Well, these endings are kind of like the building districts. So based on where your file cabinet is and which building district that it lives in is called a top level domain, or a TLD. So domain local.com is a specific file cabinet, but local business cannot be given to just one person, because there would be many businesses that can be held on that one friendly name. So localbusiness.com is not the same as localbusiness.co or .io or .org, right? So they all have a similar cabinet label, but they are stored in different buildings. And this is why it's common for a business to buy multiple domains under the same name, because they're trying to protect their brand from their competitors or creating confusion. So most businesses are going to buy the .com if it's available, because it is the most trusted public-facing option, because people naturally expect your business website to end with a .com.
Mm-hmm. Or it has for a while, right? And then rolling with the domain as a filing cabinet, and your domain is the file cabinet, and obviously it's often the root domain or the apex. Why? Because it sits right at the very top, right? Or just simply called the domain. And think of it as a central filing cabinet where your business organizes its entire digital property. So there's one important distinction we should make right here, is that your domain is not automatically a website. Some people actually think it is, believe it or not. And it is only the name and address structure that allows people and systems to find your website. So it's more of a, if anything, it's more of like a GPS to get people to your website, right? Or if you have an email, funnels, applications, anything attached to it as well. So your domain can support many different functions all at once. It's very versatile and flexible.
So if you have to get yourself a file cabinet to own your business online, then where do you actually buy this file cabinet? Well, that place is called a domain registrar. And a domain registrar is where people purchase, renew, or manage the registration of that domain name. So these examples include something like GoDaddy, Namecheap, Squarespace, Cloudflare, and others. Think of the registrar as kind of like the government office building or property record office where your filing cabinet is officially registered in your name. The register maintains the record that says, hey, this person is in control of this domain. Your registry also provides your hosting, DNS, email, or website tools, but they don't always have to be the person who is controlling these things. So for example, you register your domain from GoDaddy, but you manage your DNS through Cloudflare. You host your website through Webflow. You host your funnels through HighLevel. You manage your email through Google Workspace, and you run your portal of applications through another provider. The domain is the shared front door address that connects all of these systems together.
So you can see how it's already starting to get a little complicated as things are, but they're all connected at the same time. Renewals are extremely important when it comes to domains, and auto renewals, and also the lock-in from the registrar to protect the cabinet, because this is not a one-time purchase. Some people think it is, believe it or not. And it's actually more of a lease or an annual registration for your filing cabinet that you name, but you have to renew it, because if you don't, it's going to be actually detrimental. And here's what I mean by that. Your website will stop working. Email, funnels, landing pages that are attached to it, customer portals, all your DNS records, all that will cease to exist. And also what's even more dangerous at the end of it is if you don't renew it and you've had actually some substantial web traffic or you've had a good business digital presence already happening, someone else can actually buy that domain and try to resell it to you or basically hold it ransom until you pay that ransom.
Yeah, and we have had that happen for many clients, unfortunately. So this is where I think a lot of people start to get confused. What is a subdomain? They understand that they have a domain, but I can host as many websites as I want on that one domain. Yes, absolutely, you can. So inside of your file cabinet, you have drawers, just like you would have in a physical file cabinet, and each drawer can actually be assigned to a different application. So for instance, your www.localbusiness.com might actually host your public website, where localbusiness.com might actually host your customer applications, or you might host your funnels at a marketing funnels.your business or portal.your local business might host your client portal. So a subdomain does not have to contain only one application, but treating major systems as separate drawers often makes the infrastructure easier to manage. It helps you avoid clutter and keeps the system separate, and it makes it easier to understand which part of your business lives on which part. So this is where you can infinitely have as many websites as you want on different subdomains, pointing to different places.
Yeah, and it's funny with domains and subdomains. Most people think that www isn't a subdomain, but actually it is. It stands for World Wide Web. But nowadays, most people don't even type in www when they go to a domain. They just type in something the way that you go. But it is a subdomain nonetheless. So www.yourbusinessname.com, subdomain plus domain.com, right? Which is really great because you can choose whether your primary address lives on the primary domain or the subdomain. Either one can work just fine. The important thing is that one version should redirect to the other, so people and the search engines are not treated as though they are seeing two different locations or websites. That's extremely important.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one that trips people up all the time because they just assume that www is the website, but it is indeed just a subdomain. So then there's one next step further deeper into this file cabinet, which is path, slugs, and folder organization. So content has to live inside those drawers. So if we're imagining that your business location is the full file cabinet and the subdomains are the drawers inside that file cabinet, then your path, slugs, and folders are basically the folder structure inside of those file cabinet drawers. And so, for example, you might have www.localbusiness.com/services. Services is a folder that has all the files that are about your website inside of that folder, or www.localbusiness.com/contacts is its separate folder. So in this example, funnels.localbusiness.com is the drawer. The book now is the folder inside of that drawer, and the summer offers is another folder in the same drawer. Inside these folders are actual pages, forms, applications, automation triggers, videos, documents, and customer data or digital experiences. Each path needs a unique name because two folders in the same drawer cannot have the same label. You cannot have two different pages, but both be calling them funnels.localbusiness.com/book now. The system would not know which one to send the visitor to. So that makes perfect sense. And any of you who have ever used a system like something like Go HighLevel, if you try to make a funnel page on the same domain, on the same subdomain with the same path URL, it randomly creates a string of numbers behind it. Well, that's because that's the system auto-correcting the fact that you need to have this page be a separate page. It cannot have the exact same title. So if you've ever had that happen, that's why it's happening.
Mm-hmm. And so now we move into hosting, because hosting is where you actually put the cabinet. I mean, obviously, you don't want, if going back to this city and street city analogy, you don't want a cabinet just hanging out on the street by itself and not being protected, right? So you actually got to put it somewhere where it's nice and secure. So your domain is the name of the filing cabinet. Subdomains are the drawers, and the folders are organized in sections inside of each drawer, but those things need somewhere to live, physical space. In this case, it's the hosting. So this is what actual hosting provides. And in the building or an office or warehouse, it's where the filing cabinet stays safe and contained with all the other content. And when someone visits your website, the hosting is what delivers the page. When someone submits a form, it's where the hosting is when it receives and processes that request. When someone logs into your application, the hosting is what runs the application and delivers that dashboard. So the same domain that can point to different subdomains to complete different ones, to complete different hosting providers can also do the following, right? You can do yourlocalbusiness.com, and it can point to Webflow. It can point to HighLevel, which could be your CRM or operating system of choice. It can point to Shopify if you're doing any type of e-commerce. It can point to a custom software platform that you've built, you and your team have built. And it can also point to a Kajabi or some kind of other learning or LMS system. Again, it's so versatile. You can point it to wherever you want it to.
So with that, the IP address is the physical street address. So a domain is easy for humans to remember, but computers need technical locations. That technical location is usually an IP address. An IP address is the physical street address, the building of where the application or hosting environment lives. When someone types in localbusiness.com, their browser does not immediately know where to go. If it asks the internet routing system, where is this building that serves this drawer? The routing system looks up the IP address and sends the visitor to the correct hosting environment. The visitor sees the friendly name, but the computer uses a technical street address behind the scenes. So this is why it's so nice that we don't have to remember all of the businesses on the internet by a long digit code.
No one will be able to do that.
But, maybe Rayman.
Yeah, maybe if you're that, you got to steal trap from memory. But anyway, so DNS, and DNS is the routing office, right? And so DNS stands for Domain Name System, and it routes is the routing office to your digital file cabinet. And its job is to basically tell the internet, the traffic, hey, where am I going? Where should I go? So when someone types in your business URL, the browser asks the DNS, where should I go? And then it finds that drawer, and then it directs them to it, right? So visitors, it can send visitors to your localbusiness.com, to the website host. It can send visitors to your funnels, that is a subdomain of your domain, to the funnel platform, or it can send an email to that's why a lot of people have their first names at their local business, and that corresponds with their Google Workspace or whoever their email service provider is of choice. One thing that DNS does not do, and this is worth note taking, it does not contain your website pages, folders, forms, or files. So DNS does not decide which funnel pages someone sees. DNS only gets traffic to the correct drawer or the right application. So once traffic arrives at that platform itself decides what happens next. Right?
Exactly.
So for an example, when DNS sends someone to funnels.yourbusiness.com to HighLevel as part of your operating system, HighLevel then decides what to show to someone or that person when they get there. So the cleanest way to remember what DNS does is it gets people to the right drawer, but the application inside that drawer decides ultimately which folder, page, or experience that user or that web traffic receives.
So then that brings us to another term that people often hear is name servers that tell the internet who runs the routing office. So name servers tell the internet which company is responsible for managing the DNS records. Think of name servers as like the sign on the file cabinet that says, for routing, location, and questions about this cabinet, contact this office or this record office. You might register your domain through GoDaddy, but manage your DNS through Cloudflare. In that case, you would update your name servers at GoDaddy to tell the internet Cloudflare is now routing the office responsible for this domain. You still own the domain through the registrar. You are simply delegating the responsibility for managing the routing instructions to a different provider. So your domain registrar manages the office registration, your DNS manages the traffic direction, and your hosting provider runs the actual website application and or service. This can all be the same company, but it doesn't have to be.
So you have some choice, you have some options there, right? So DNS records are the specific routing instructions. And so DNS uses different types of records for different types of instructions. So that's important to know. Obviously, everything is intentional here. So think of DNS records as individual routing cards, mailroom instructions and authorization forms stored inside of the routing office itself. So an A record, for example, could be the street address. So an A record points to a domain, a subdomain for a specific IP address. So it is like writing, this drawer is located at 123 Main Street, and A records are commonly used to direct a domain to a website server or the hosting environment itself. CNAME records could be the forwarding address. So a CNAME record points the domain to another domain name. I know it's getting a little technical in domains to domains, but trust me, bear with us. This will all make sense as it builds upon itself. It is commonly used when connecting a subdomain to a platform such as HighLevel, Shopify, Webflow, HubSpot, etc. And think of it this way: it's the drawer is This drawer is housed inside of another building, and it follows this forwarding address. For example, if it's funnels, which is a subdomain of your local business, it might point to a high-level domain managed behind the scenes. TXT records is a verification note or an authorization document, and is often used to verify that you control the domain or authorize an application to use it. A platform might ask you to add a TXT record before it allows you to connect your domain. Think of it as placing an official note inside of your record of, office that says, hey, this organization is authorized, has authorized this platform to use this filing cabinet. So I'm actually giving it authority to do so. And so TXT records are also important for email security and the sender verification when it comes to just overall cyber health. MX records are the mailroom location. So it tells the internet where emails for your domain should be delivered. So for example, where to send messages addressed to hello@yourbusinessname.com, right? Think of an MX records as the instructions for the mailroom. Your website hosting and your email hosting can be completely separate, but your website might be on Webflow while your email is handled by Google Workspace or Microsoft 365.
So Mike covered a lot there. What I feel like,
I need a breath.
I think with all those records, this is, I think, one of the biggest pieces. And I just want to pause here for a second, because this is why it's so complex oftentimes to jump into the digital ecosystem. It's not that what we do is hard. It's that if you don't actually have the ability to connect all of these things and understand what they do, you can find yourself becoming a button clicker who I am able to watch a tutorial or two and click and push these things in. And, oh, wow, I see that it tells me put MX here, put TXT here. But really, what are those things? What do those things mean?
Yeah.
And I think that it's important for you to truly understand what they mean, because when it breaks, you now know where to go troubleshoot,
Yes.
right? It's kind of like routing up all of these lines inside of a breaker box. If you don't label the breaker box very clearly, when the power goes out, you're not quite sure which breaker to flip.
Correct.
And that becomes a problem when you're the person having to troubleshoot, whether that means that you're the business owner trying to troubleshoot, well, which vendor do I call to fix this issue? Mm-hmm. Or whether you're the vendor who is trying to figure out, well, which one of the business owners, other vendors might be controlling this part of the digital infrastructure. So in order for you to truly be able to start making decisions and being able to move quickly, the more organized you are, the faster you can go. So it's structure over speed actually makes you be able to go fast, because you can do it long term, right?
Yeah. And so, also, I think knowing all this, it makes finding the needle in the haystack short or smaller. Right?
Exactly. So with all of those records comes one more thing that I think really confuses a lot of people. And nothing is worse than the day when your email goes down and you don't know why, right? Or nothing is worse if you a marketer and all of the emails for your customer keep ending up in the spam, and they're paying you to be able to do their ad campaigns.
Or they not getting the confirmation after a purchase, and it's a cascading.
It can be a really big problem. So SPF, DKIM, and DMARC are the mailroom security system. So MX records tells the internet where incoming mail comes from, but modern business email also needs to prove it's authorized to send on the behalf of the domain. This is where SPKF, DKIM, and DMARC all come in, right? So SPF. And whenever I think of SPF, I just think of, sunscreen. We're not talking about sunscreen here, right? So this approves the sender list. So if SPF tells the email provider which systems are authorized to send emails on the behalf of this domain. Think of it like the approval list of people allowed to use your company's outgoing mailroom. For example, Google Workspace, HighLevel, and MailChimp are all allowed to send emails from this domain. If the system is not on the list, it may be treated as suspicious. Where DKIM, the official security stamp, is a digital signature on the outgoing mail. An official company stamps placed on every piece of outgoing mail, and it helps receiving providers confirm that the email did come from the authorized source, the message was not changed in transit, and the sender is legitimate. And DMARC is the security policy. DMARC tells receiving providers what to do when the emails SPF or DKIM checks the DMARC is the company's security policy for suspicious mail. It can tell the mail system to allow the email through, send it to spam, or reject it entirely. So the email system touches, MX tells the internet where incoming mail goes. SPF is there to identify approved senders. DKIM is stamped on outgoing mail as authentic, and the DMARC tells the provider how to handle suspicious or unauthorized messages. Without these records, your business emails may be more likely landing in the spam, failing to be delivered, or being impersonated. This is such a huge one, guys, because of cybersecurity. A lot of you, if you are in any kind of business training, if you work for corporate, then you've probably been trained on phishing emails. This is why this has to happen, because hackers will use your email to try to get people to click on links that are malicious. And this is all designed to make sure that people think that your emails are legitimate. So if you're missing these records, this might be why your emails are not being delivered.
Yeah, and as you can see now, as we're going through these fundamentals, we started with, hey, what are these things, to now, how do we secure these things, right? If these are important to us, then we have to make sure that there's a level of protection around that. And that's kind of what we're rolling through right now with DMARC and also SSL certificates. So SSL is really the lock and security seal for your connection. And most of us already know this when it's HTTPS, that S icon that you see in the browser. So think of SSL as a lock or the tamper seal and identity badge on your filing cabinet. So it tells visitors that, hey, the cabinet is controlled by the organization claiming to own it. So it's actually the actual owner, and the information sent to and from it should be encrypted, and that the connection is protected, and overall, basically, it's hard to intercept, or damn near hard to intercept the connection there. So without SSL, a website may still technically load, but the browsers will warn visitors that, hey, the connection is not secure. I'm sure some of you have jumped on a website and it tells you a pop-up, hey, this is not secure. Do you wish to proceed? At that point, it's at your own discretion, because you're onboarding that risk that I'm about to walk into an unsecure environment. So it's especially important for forms, login pages, booking pages, customer portals, e-commerce, and any place where someone submits personal or business information.
And with that comes redirects and forwarding instructions, right? So a redirect is what happens when someone uses your old address and then they enter the wrong entrance or needs to be sent to a different folder. Think of it kind of like the note on the old folder that says the information has moved, so please go to drawer B, folder F. So let's look at localbusiness.com redirects to www.localbusiness.com. www.localbusiness.com/old offer could redirect to /new offer. An expired campaign link redirects to a current campaign, or a retired product page redirects to the placement product page. Redirects matter because the businesses change websites, campaigns, pages, offers, and structures over time. And without redirects, visitors may end up at a dead end instead of being guided to the correct destination.
So propagation, what is propagation? It is the delay while routing Office updates and their directories. So when you change your DNS records, the change does not happen instantaneously everywhere. So different email providers, browsers, systems may temporarily hold it or hold on to an older version of the routing instructions. And so this is called the DNS propagation. Think of it like changing the file cabinet location in a citywide directory. It's kind of big. Now, some receptionists desks update it in real time immediately, while others might be still waiting on it. So it might be yesterday or the day after for it to actually to get updated. So that means after a DNS change, one person may see the new website while another may not, and they'll see the old one. So the email may begin working for some systems before others. Connected platforms may verify the record before another one does. Again, this is all contingent on the platform, right? And then, so this is a normal behavior. So it's nothing to cause major concern on. But it does not always mean that the setup is wrong. It may simply mean that the routing instructions are still updating across the internet. So give it some time.
But this actually takes us to another really important point. If you're going to do some major overhaul where you would need to redirect your traffic someplace else, you need to plan in advance to understand that it could end up taking up to 48 to 72 hours for all of your traffic to be able to get that updated change.
How many
so it probably would be great to not do it in the middle of your busy demand season or having it be done during high hours. So this is important for you to understand why that propagation happens and why it's happening. And if you are having a service provider do this for you, understand that they can't control this. This has to do with all of the directories starting to update. They would love for it to happen closer or more than 48 hours. And like you said, a lot of them do update in real time, but not all of them do. So you have to watch out for that. With that, there's also something called caching. And this is when someone is looking at an old copy of the directions. So caching is related to propagation. It happens when the browser, internet provider, computer, or server temporarily remembers the old version of the page. So DNS records are the route. Think of that like someone keeping an old printed map instead of checking the updated city directory. Even after you've updated the current routing instructions, they may still follow the old copy for a while. This is why testing domains change can sometimes feel inconsistent. One person sees the update, another one does not. A private browser window clears cache automatically. So changing networks or waiting for the DNS records to refresh can help confirm whether the new setup is actually working. I think one of the biggest mistakes I know that we made in the early days when we were trying to do this was just trying to constantly fiddle with the settings because it wasn't working when it was just something that had to have time to propagate or cache.
Clear the cache and then away you go, right?
So let's just recap really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if the full filing cabinet structure now looks like this, you have the internet, and then you have top level domains like .com, and then you have the root domain, which is the actual file cabinet, which would be localbusiness.com. And localbusiness.com might host multiple different drawers inside of it. So you would have a website drawer that had www.localbusiness.com, and it has some slugs called service, about, and contact, which are your folders. You could have a funnel drawer called funnels.localbusiness.com, and it could have its own folders, book now, offer one, thank you. You could have a application drawer, which hosts app.localbusiness.com, and then login or dashboard. Learning drawer, which is just learn.localbusiness.com. You could have support drawer, support.localbusiness.com. And then you could have your email mailroom, which is hello@localbusiness.com. So behind the scenes, what you have going on is the domain registrar has managed the ownership and renewed all of localbusiness.com. The name server tells the internet who manages those DNS records. The DNS manager stores the routing instructions and the verification records, which are your domain, or your DNS records are your A record, which is your server street address, your CNAME, your forwarding address, your TXT verification authorization notes, your MX, which includes mailroom locations, your SPF, which is approval outgoing mail sender, your DKIM, official outgoing mail stamp, and your DMARC, a suspicious mail security DMARC, a suspicious mail security policy. And you have your hosting provider, which runs the actual website, funnels, and applications and platform, your SSL certificate, which secures the connection and verifies the cabinet's identity, and redirects, which helps send visitors from old or alternative addresses to the correct location.
Oh, and by the way, full disclosure, number 19 or 20 are references that I go back to all the time when it comes to troubleshooting, because I know at one time it's too many times that if you come back here, chances are if you got duplicate TXT or MX records are the culprit, and you can easily troubleshoot on the fly when something is an issue, right? So you want to go? Yeah.
So if you think about it, then the simplest way to remember the entire system would be the internet is the city, and .com, .co, or .io are similar endings of the buildings or districts. Your domain is the file cabinet registered in that building. Your registrar is the property record office that manages ownership of that cabinet. Your subdomains are the drawers within the cabinets. The paths and slugs are the folders inside of each of those drawers. Your hosting provider is where the cabinet's contents actually live and operate. The DNS manager is the routing office that tells the traffic which drawer to visit. Your name server tells the internet which routing office is responsible for the cabinet. The DNS records are the routing, verification, and mailroom instructions. The IP address is the physical street address of the hosting environment. The SSL certificate is the lock and security seal. The email records control the mailroom and prevent unauthorized senders. And your redirects are forwarding instructions when the folders or drawers have moved. And lastly, the DNS propagation and caching are the delays in which old directories and old maps update. So what we can talk about in closing out this entire
those are the fundamentals
live
and the
stream,
foundations, right?
Is that if you want to own a business on the internet today, this is the foundation that you must understand in order for you to make sure that you have secured the actual physical asset that is your business. This is no different than you having the deed to your property and securing the perimeter around your property and protecting what's inside that property, if you don't understand these fundamentals, it is very easy for somebody to take your business away from you. Because at any step of the way, whether they get control of your DNS manager, or they get control of your domain registrar, or they get control of your hosting environments, they can wreak havoc on your business intentionally or unintentionally. So we like to tell people that it doesn't really matter if you think you're techie or you're not techie. Today, our businesses, our lives are ran by technology. So it's no longer just an issue of, well, I'm just going to hire a guy to do this. You can, but that guy might also have to work with a whole bunch of other guys who all have access now. And in order to limit your, I would say, threat attack service of your business, these are the very basic foundations that everybody should understand. And you don't have to know how to do this, but you do need to understand what it is for, so that when someone comes and says, hey, I just need you to give me your logins for your domain registrar,
or add me as a whatever admin level access for access management on this level, you can discern whether does that person really need the access level, or are they trying to not necessarily pull a fast one, but maybe they're also ignorant in what they're asking too. Again, this is your ability to discern and have the right vernacular and vocabulary to understand what someone is asking for this. Because we've had conversations with people that they had no idea who their hosting provider was. They had no idea who was the custodian of records for their MS or DNS. Zero.
But I do want to end, obviously, this has been a relatively long, I would say, kind of live session. Not every session will be this long, but I feel like with the foundations, we wanted to go into a lot more depth, because as we start continuing to build the language of the landscape that is modern business today, we want to be able to help people understand that the reason it's so difficult to break into technology, the reason it's so difficult to run a business today, is because you have to manage so many interconnected systems. If you don't understand the basics, it would be like trying to understand Shakespeare when you don't even know your ABCs. And that is what we're trying to do. And that's what we hope to impact on every Sunday at 6 in these Ask the Hive sessions, so that you can start attending, and we can also start to answer questions about this at the end of our presentations or during it. So if you will, please drop some comments in the comment. We would love to be able to answer some more in-depth questions. There are no stupid questions. And remember, it doesn't matter if some of these concepts were absolutely foreign today and you're like, I understood nothing that you talked about.
Or if they were complete review and like, listen, man, you guys are awesome, but I know all this like back of my hand, and this was really for me.
Because this is just the foundation. And over the next few weeks, we will start to deep dive into all the interconnected concepts and how all of these things work together. And as you can see right now, you can see that our digital infrastructure is interconnecting with all of these different concepts, not just our, technical architecture, but also into our domains and also into some of our other platforms. And they will even interconnect more. So as we kind of deep dive, it's about us helping you to orient yourself around these concepts, because when you have context, then you can finally start to be able to make decisions.
Context will supersede clarity.
And I believe that AI is a powerful execution engine, but in order for you to have human judgment and how for you to make a decision, you need to have the context around the topic to truly be able to make that decision. So we thank you for tuning in today, and we look forward to seeing you next Sunday at 6.
Have a great week.